about to begin. We want to welcome you to the Vampire and Devil Show. We want to welcome you to the Vampire and Devil Show. It's gonna be bloody fun. We're gonna kill everyone. Welcome to the Vampire and Devil Show. With lots of blood and lots of guts. Two horror fanatics and rock and roll nuts. Welcome to the Vampire and Devil Show.
Hey, you guys are the Boondock Saints. What are you guys up to? We're getting ready to watch the Vampire and Devil podcast and killing motherfuckers. One devil to another. Watch the Vampire and Devil podcast.
Welcome back, ghouls and goblins, spooks and creeps. Welcome back to a new episode of Vampire and Devil. We appreciate you guys. Super stoked that you rock out and you get bloody and you get evil with us. So before we get into our first set of reviews here for the first ever showdown here on Vampire and Devil, we have something that we need to talk about. So it's been about a week. By the time this episode airs, it'll be about another week. So there will have been some real time now for potentially cooler heads to prevail. But something dropped last week. Some photos came out. We have to talk about this. The Crow. The first photos from Vanity Fair of Bill Skarsgård and his portrayal of Eric Draven have come out. And it seems to me that the reaction initially has definitely been less than favorable. So I'll start off with just this little tidbit, but then I'm going to kick it right to you to start it off. I'm down for the ride. I really am. I like Bill a lot. I think he's a fantastic character actor, and his portrayals of his characters have so far given me a lot to enjoy. I love what I saw in Pennywise, and I'm a fan of what I'm seeing so far for the upcoming Nosferatu. So I'm personally down for the ride, and I like it. The other reason why I'm willing to ride the wave right now is because while the original Crow, of course, is a cult classic, pretty much perfect in every way, it really wasn't accurate to the comic book, to the graphic novel. From my understanding, the upcoming Crow movie is supposed to be much more accurate to the graphic novel. However, these early photos are very, very unique. I really like Bill from the neck up. The jailhouse tattoos, while I don't hate them and don't overly have a problem with them, seem kind of weird to me. But I'm down for the ride. But what's your take on the photos of Bill and Eric Draven?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't completely stoked when I saw the first photos of him as Pennywise. I thought Pennywise looked kind of moronic. His head was way too big. But like I said, Bill played a really good part, and the movie was really, really good, and it was one of the better actual remake movies. I've been a voice of not doing any of these Crow movies for a while. Only because, it kind of shits on Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm completely cool with them doing another Crow movie, but then obviously if you do another Crow sequel, you couldn't do it as a sequel that features Eric Draven because, every other one's been a different Crow. So, but I mean, I don't know, man. The fans are kind of all shitting on it. Apparently, the director of the Crow movies have shitted on it.
Really? I hadn't heard that yet.
The girl who played Sarah in the original one said she shitted on it.
I did
So
see that.
so it's like, everybody's shitting on, and like I said, it could be, it could be a really, really good movie, but I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like I said, I'm all for maybe a continuation of the Crow movies, but then again, the only problem I have, and I was talking about this before, the only problem I have with it being another sequel, which would be better, is the fact that, let's say this movie is very well written. Let's say it's very well acted. Let's say it's visually awesome. Let's say it's kick ass, like the It movies and all that. So you go from the first Crow movie, which is a really good movie. You got the
Right.
second Crow movie, which is, I still like, but it's starting that decline. Then you have the third Crow movie that slowly goes down a lot more. Then you have that fourth Crow movie, which is the worst movie in the entire world. So all of a sudden, if you made another sequel and this one is stellar, do you really want to combine it with those other movies? And that's why I'm against it being a sequel, because you're not going to go good, okay, shitty, the worst, and then all of a sudden another good movie again. Because
Yeah.
it's weird when to do it that way. But then again, I'm against them remaking it, because, like I said, it's one of those movies that is timeless. It
Yeah.
can be really put into any time period and still work very well. You're not going to make a better movie than that is. And as a movies, as far as remakes, yeah, it's a movie from the 90s. Do we really need to start remaking 90s movies already?
Yeah.
But then
No,
again, like you saying it, but if it is more towards the comic book, maybe it might be a little bit better, because some movies that do that, where they comic books and they kind of stay away from it and then they come back into the comic book. Some of them are pretty good, but I don't know. Like, it's just, I'm on that borderline fence. Like, I may see it, but I got the tomatoes ready just in case.
for sure. I'm definitely with you on that. I like, while I'm nervous as fuck about him playing Eric Draven and playing by name Eric Draven, I'm excited about the fact it's being put together as a full-on remake, its own thing. Because again, yes, The Crow, timeless, bulletproof in every way. I like what was it? Stairway to Heaven? Is that
Yeah.
what? City of Angels.
City of Angels was the second one.
Yeah. I liked City of Angels. I actually liked it I still like it quite a bit, to be honest.
I personally think it's a good
I
movie.
liked Iggy Pop's portrayal of it. Thomas Jane was a fun little character in there. I still to this day enjoy City of Angels. Salvation, I don't hate. I really don't. I liked the slightly unique, different look of the makeup. I thought it was sharp. It had a comedy aspect that I really liked, which is kind of little cheeky puns that they would slide in there. I mean, I like the late Ed Ward anyway. So while I liked his character then, now I feel a little bit more sentimental towards that movie, not having him now. And Wicked Prayer, I love Edward Furlong, but what the fuck? So anyway, yes, I'm definitely with you on that. If it was designed as just another chapter in the Crow saga, to be honest, that might even have technically been a little bit safer to go with, because from Wicked Prayer, all you could go is up, in my opinion. So, but it's definitely weird. Again, I like Bill Skarsgård. I like his look for the character from the neck up. I'm not hating on the mullet thing. I'm really not, but I think the regular straight hair would have been better in those photos. I think it would have chilled people out. The tattoos, like I said, they're very Jailhouse to me. They're very failed wannabe rapperish. I get very strong Die Antwoord vibes from
I was kind of thinking maybe because it's trying to tap into like now generation, so it's very, like you said, them MGK kind of like a look kind of to it. Got a little bit of like people have been comparing it to the Jared Leto's Joker.
Yeah.
So it's more like what society, quote unquote, says a rocker looks like now.
Yeah.
Versus how Eric Draven looked like in the original movie.
Absolutely. So, and I'll leave it as this as well. Like, as I also do feel I myself personally owe it a fair shot for two reasons. One, movies that really matter to me, I just feel the need and the obligation to see and judge for myself. Like Hocus Pocus 2, you and I saw that together. That was a movie I was just going to need to see regardless, despite how much I care about the first Hocus Pocus. As well as, like just other type of movies that are just, I can take them and leave them, but there are just certain movies that I know I need to see. The upcoming Beetlejuice movie. So far, everybody seems to be equally as excited about that movie. There doesn't seem to be an overwhelming amount of fear leading up to that movie. But again, I love the Beetlejuice movie so much. I feel an obligation and a need to see that movie. It's really no different with The Crow. But the other reason, and that's the second reason that I do feel I need to see the Crow movie, is I have been an advocator and protector of Jared Leto's Joker. I liked his portrayal. I always have. There's, as a big fan of the Joker myself, there are things in his portrayal visually and just stylistically that I think I understood more than somebody else who was maybe a casual fan that sees the grill and thinks it's just a grill, where I see it a different way based on what I know of the comic books, the tattoos on the face, certain things like that. There's stuff that I am aware of from other Joker portrayals, whether it's involvement in Jason Todd as well as involvement with Tim Drake, that I'm aware of just being a fan of the Joker, that I think went over the heads of the average fans. And it didn't help Jared that, one, the Suicide Squad movie was horrific. And he should have been the main antagonist over Enchantress. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was such a train wreck, is the trailers led you to believe that he was a dominant character. But then you only got him for 7 minutes in a 2-hour movie. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. Those are my two reasons I feel I need to see this Crow movie with an open mind and with an open heart, because of movies that matter to me, like The Crow, like Hocus Pocus, and like Beetlejuice, that I had already committed to and did see and will see. I do feel I owe it that. And second of all, yes, the comparisons to Jared Leto's Joker, they're pretty accurate when you look at those photos. I really can't pretend like they're not. But as a pro Jared Leto Joker fan, I need to compare it. I need to see it with my own eyes. So we'll see. But we're going to leave it at that for the time being there, fans. So we will either come at you guys down the line with our reviews and our thoughts on the Crow movie, or you might get this as a Vampire exclusive. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. Showdown time. Fans, this is your first opportunity to get to watch Vampire versus Devil. We've got more of these coming at you. We're very excited to turn over this chapter and have a little bit of fun with ourselves. You will still get your solo reviews for the alphabet that we started on our last episode, with A being the Amityville Horror, and we will get into B a little bit later. But we are going to start off with our showdown, and our first showdown was a clown showdown.
Yeah, man. We decided we were going to go into the realm of clowns and killer clowns, and when we started doing it, everybody was assuming we were going to do It and Killer Clowns from Outer Space and the
Terrifier.
Terrifier, the big one now. And it was like, we could do those, but those movies have already had enough time in the press and time in the minds of everybody. So we decided, we were like, you know what? I'm going to have myself, I'm going to have Vampire. We're both going to pick a movie that we liked that was clown related, and we're going to see what the fans like, who they liked movie which better. But ultimately, we're still going to talk about both movies because this is our show.
It is, absolutely. And so, just so you fans know and are familiar with how we're doing this, everything still applies the same way. We will review them as you've become accustomed to. We will rate them with the kills as you've been accustomed to. The speed version of this is just to make it nice and simple. If we're reviewing my movie and I say it's a 7 and Devil says it's a 6, we will agree on a 6.5 for that movie. If we're rating Devil's movie, for example, and he says it's an 8, I say it's a 7, we'll agree at a 7.5, and 6.5 versus 7.5, that gives Devil's movie the win. There's the simplistic version of how this will go. But again, this is our show, and it'll be fun. And if there's any uncertainties or any curiosities, sometimes it's just nice to be curious, and we'll get into that when it's necessary. So why don't we start it off with Clown?
You're gonna die, clown!
That was my pick. So we're doing Clown versus Stitches for the fans that aren't familiar yet. So we'll start off with Clown. Personally, it's always been one of my higher up clown movies personally, because I've always really liked the particular darkness to it, mixed, in my opinion, with old school, like, demonology storytelling kind of stuff. For fans that aren't familiar with me yet, I'm also a very big, like, Krampus fan. I love that old school Yuletide demon, aka the Christmas devil type of mythology. I've always been very big into that. So anyway, Clown came out in 2014. It was directed by John Watts, who actually directed the last 3 Spider-Man movies. But it's a darker, visually darker movie. It doesn't have an over amount of color to it, but it starts off basically about this father and this husband and wife and their kid having a birthday party. They hire a clown. The clown's not able to do the gig on very short notice. So, of course, they're all devastated and they have to figure things out on the fly. The father is able to find this clown costume and performs at his kid's birthday party himself as the clown so he doesn't disappoint his son. But then he's trying to get the suit off, and he can't get the suit off, like, at all. Like, instantaneously, it's binded to him, it's gripped to him. The clown nose won't come off. The colored wig won't come off. The actual clown costume won't come off. That was something that I found very interesting personally right off the bat, was it's one thing to be a clown, get too into the character, and maybe become evil. This evil entity gripped on him instantaneously to where he didn't have a choice but to live it out and try to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. Like, I like that concept because it was like, it was, the what they say that in this movie that the clown suit is actually a skin.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's crazy, yeah, because like he's going to his everyday job, and they're looking at him like, why the hell are you dressed up as a clown for? And he's like, I can't get this off. And he even tells his wife, like, I can't get this off. And she tries to take his nose and takes half of his nose off with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I liked the whole concept of this. It was like, beware of, because like I said, when he found this clown suit, he found it in a basement of a place that he's renovating. He finds it in this trunk that's locked up and looks like it's been guarded or some shit like that. And it's like, I'm just gonna randomly open this chest. Oh, there happens to be a clown suit. I need a clown suit. I'm just gonna put this on. Maybe there was a reason why that clown suit was buried and hidden and kept secret and kept quiet, because it probably kind of teach you, like, don't go into things that you shouldn't go into.
Right. No, you're definitely right about that too. And also, like we talked about John Watts, but the other thing we definitely have to point out to the fact is for the horror community is Eli Roth was actually a producer of this movie. And anybody that's familiar with Eli Roth knows how twisted his sense of humor and his style is for movies, going all the way back, of course, to, hold on. There we go. Going back, of course, to Cabin Fever, which really kind of broke him out. But even his appearances on things like Inglourious Bastards with Quentin Tarantino. But he also has his TV series, A History of Horror, which is really, really excellent. But Eli Roth has always just been that very kind of twisted style. Even things like Green Inferno, which we watched together, which was his direct answer to Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah. You always know whenever you see his name, whether it's producing, directing, acting, his roles in that movies are always gonna be iconic, and it's always gonna be super, super freaking. You're gonna get cool stories, and you're gonna get some gore, because he is known as like a torture. They call it torture porn movies. Like he likes his movies being a little bit on the darker side as far as graphically. And this movie had some graphic scenes in it. I mean, it was definitely pretty interesting, because like you were saying, this entity, all of a sudden you get these cool backstories about this clown outfit, and he starts getting this lust for blood, and he starts going after kids. And yeah, it definitely gets, throughout the movie, when it keeps going further and further into the movie, it does start to get a lot darker, a lot more twisted, a lot more cynical, and it goes places that most modern movies wouldn't go to, especially when it goes to children and horror movies. And they didn't pull no punches in this movie.
No, they definitely didn't. And the funny thing is, it deals so much with that, demonology history, those old mythological creatures, where you think of like, Mothman and like Bigfoot, or like these just old Medusa, these mythological creatures. And that's something I always found very, very interesting. And I actually really liked about this movie in particular, because it's a darker aesthetic. Like I said, it's very visually dark for a clown movie. Even Terrifier, which has an insane amount of blood all over the place, is a bright movie. There are certain scenes, of course, that are darker, and I'm not going to get too much on a tangent, but you got the first Terrifier, the diner, it's darker. The warehouse where a lot of the kills happen is darker, but there's a lot of tongue in cheek there. But in Terrifier 2, a lot of bright to everything. The girl that he tortures in the mom's house, very, very bright scene. The Spirit Halloween type of store, that kind of stuff. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, nothing but bright colors. But those are in-depth conversations for another time. But the whole movie, without being black and white, feels very black and white. And that was something that I really liked about it, when the wife and the husband are starting to, the wife in particular, study what is happening to her husband, learning that the clown itself is actually an old, hundreds of years old entity that was more of a torture person, very similar to Krampus. And I think that's why I feel the way I do about the movie and the comparisons, where this was a person to be feared, that tortured kids, that killed people. This was not a happy-go-lucky person. And that's how everything kind of built up as well. As he was changing, morphing, he was physically changing his face, his hands, his feet. But for the sake of it still being a clown movie, there is very uniquely placed tongue-in-cheek. And while I don't think that the tongue-in-cheek is overwhelming, which I like, it's very uniquely placed, and you have a hard time not laughing at it. Like when he felt that there was nothing he was going to be able to do to change, and decide that honestly, for everyone's safety, taking his life might be the best way to do it, he shoots himself in the head with a gun, and a rainbow blood splatter hits the wall.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the whole entire movie, because it was just
hilarious.
it was just like out of nowhere. You see, boom, you're like, okay, and then you're like, really? Like, you're going to get some cotton candy confetti blood. And then obviously it doesn't work because the entity's like, yeah, no, you don't get off that easy.
Well, and it's not an overly kill high movie. There's really not a lot of deaths in that movie. It's more darker scenes of secondary things being killed, like animals and stuff like that. But for you PETA people, it's not over the top, but there are certain, animal deaths that die there. But then they learn of the person who used to be the clown because it was his place being renovated. The wife does the research and finds that he was the clown, tracks him down. He's like, how did you get out of it? And so basically you've got one of two ways to do it. And that's either sacrifice a certain number of children or cut off the head of the person who's the clown. And that's the way that it goes. So that's how he was able to get out of being the clown, because he sacrificed the necessary amount of children. And leading up to the end of the movie, they were down to one more kid sacrifice, which looked like it actually might have been their son, but decided that wasn't the way that it could happen. And the wife ends up decapitating her husband.
Yep. And then, yeah, you get that. It was a pretty cool scene because once he cuts off his head, you notice like the basically the clown outfit and all that kind of stuff went back to its natural state. The nose came back, the skin of the clown outfit came off, the hair went back to its normal bright color. So inside of the morgue, whenever you find the dead body, it's kind of like, it basically leaves it up for like, oh, who's the next person that's gonna find this suit and try to put it on. I mean, they never did make another sequel of this. I mean, they might possibly make another one, but it's one of those ones where I don't think you need to do it. It's basically implied that eventually somewhere down the line, someone's probably going to end up finding that suit and putting it on. And then that chaos is going to come back again on this one. But yeah, I like the ending. I like those just straight up whack his head off.
Yeah.
Boom, he's done.
No, definitely. Like before we get into the kill rankings, do we like a potential sequel? I personally like it as a standalone.
Yeah, that's what I say. I mean, like I said, I'm not against the sequel for it because it'd be kind of cool to see, especially with it being locked up in a cop. It's got the freaking do not enter crap, like the caution tape for police evidence and stuff like that in it. So like I'm kind of curious on how someone would get it. I guess maybe if you do a sequel, maybe it's a cop that's like, hey man, I need cop later on, years later. It's been in evidence for years and years, and the cops now don't really know why it's in evidence, and the cop needs a quick clown outfit for his kid or something like that, maybe. But like I said, it's one of those ones like it doesn't. I don't think it needs a sequel. I think it was a good straight up movie. Like I said, I'm not against a sequel, but it doesn't need it.
Totally, man. No, I'm definitely with you I'm definitely with you on that, Devil. I'm cool with that for sure. So let's get into the kill rankings for this and how we saw this film. So fans, we are very, we rate our movies simply as movies. This actually ranks kind of high for me, not because it's my movie, but it stylistically is stuff I've always loved, and that's that demonology style. I love that back style. It's always been something I'm just into. Like I said, Krampus, Pyewacket, like those type of things, Mothman type of stuff. It's an 8.5 for me. I love the dark aesthetic, even with the lack of basic kills. It did so much dark curiosities and the research of the wife and the panic and fear of her husband. It always kept me very interested, the whole movie. versus like last episode when we were talking about Amityville Horror. It's not that the movie's not fantastic. It's just such a slow burn, and it's excellently done and well acted, but it doesn't have that power behind it for a high rating. I loved this dark aesthetic of a clown movie, making it as a villainous character and always a villainous character, and that kind of like that old saying of not every clown is happy, but not doing the typical rainbow colors that you would think. I love the fact that it's a black and white movie without being a black and white movie. So me personally, Devil, it's an 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I give it a pretty good high rating. I mean, for me, I'd probably go maybe like 7.5 or somewhere around there, only
Okay.
because I kind of wish that, when he started, I love the whole leading up to the movie, him trying to get the skin off, the suit off, him slowly going into this madness of becoming this entity. I just wish that once he became the entity, that was a little bit longer than we get 10-15 minutes of this movie where he's finally this monster and he's eating people and killing people and all that. I wish they would have got a little bit more into that. I do, like I said, I do love the backstory of it. Like you said, I love how it's shot very darkly, and the movie flows. There's not really any point of it where it's like, oh, okay, it keeps you grasped and keeps you watching the whole entire movie. But yeah, I think in my opinion, the whole reason like I love that horror movies and I love this is like the graphicness of it. Like I think it just gave you just that little bit of teaser. I think it would have been cool to have maybe a little bit longer of a time into it. But like I said, overall, it's like it probably is one of my favorite clown movies because it's not your typical clown movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it. But yeah, I'd say 7.5 for me.
Cool. No, I'm definitely down for that. Sounds great, man. So are we in agreement? 8 is the final number on the obituaries?
Yeah, I think eight. I think eight's a good spot for that.
Sounds great. Absolutely. So 8 it is, fans, on the obituaries. Vampire versus Devil in our first showdown. When we're talking about clown, we are putting an 8 for clown. And we're now going to get into the movie Stitches, which was Devil's pick for this particular showdown. And we're going to kick it right to you, my friend. Why don't you take the lead, of course, on this one?
Oh yeah, so like I said, there was a million clown movies I could have picked. I wanted something that was sort of similar to clown. I didn't want to I didn't want to pick the It movies and the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So I was like, what movie can we get that's not a really well-known movie? A lot of people might not have heard of it before, but it's still got that same kind of feel to it as the movies that we like. So that's why I picked the Stitches movie. And yeah, it was a movie that came out. I think it was filmed prominently in Ireland, so it's a very Irish movie.
It's
got a
so Irish, man.
Yeah,
that
I mean, like
is so Irish.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole like the whole lineage and the dialect and stuff like that is very. But I like it because I mean, it's basically like the kind of movies that I sort of like, where it's a lot. This one's a little bit more tongue in cheek.
Yes.
It's a little bit more comedy side of it, but it's not really too overly comic. I mean, I like it because the basic story of this is this guy is going around. He's not that great of a person in the world. Like he's a clown and he goes to parties, and you can definitely tell that he's not the greatest clown in the entire world. He kind of reminds me of Shakes the Clown, for the old movie back in the day, where he's just like a drunk. He's a drunken idiot. And he goes to this party, and these kids are like, yeah, it's a clown, and they're like all picking on him and doing rude shit and saying stuff to him. And he's at the party, and I think they threw like a ball at him or something like that, and he slipped and fell. Yeah, he slipped and fell and lands right into a knife, right into the eyeball. Gets him, and that always happens to me. I don't know about you, but every time I have a party with a bunch of my friends, someone ends up getting killed. And you know what happens when something happens at a kid's party when you get killed? Years later, that person's gonna come back and come get you. And that's what this movie basically is about. It's like 6 years later, this movie takes place now. These kids are a little bit older. They're in high school. And, the kid that had the party, he doesn't have many friends. Most of his friends are kind of, the friends that he had at that party are kind of like, he became like the not cool kid.
Devil here, due to some technical difficulties with the interwebs and them hating on the devil and the vampire, we have to tell you one thing. While we were recording our Stitches video, errors happened. So we're gonna let you know that Stitches ended up with a 7.5 rating, and it lost to Clown with an 8.0 rating. So in our verses, Clown takes the win over Stitches. Back to the show. You gotta dig through the ditches and burn through the witches and watch the Vampire and Devil podcast. I was eating his liver while watching the Vampire and Devil podcast.
What do all you Daryls like to watch? We like to watch the Vampire and Devil podcast. If we're not killing zombies, that is.
Hey, it's the devil again. Just got done watching another self-indulgent movie. This time I watched The Devil's Candy from 2015, starring Ethan Embry. It was a cool movie. Kinda creepy, kinda scary, had some blood and guts. Didn't have much of the devil's candy in it. But, anyway, it was a good movie. Psychotic, crazy, fire. Go and check it out. The devil said so.
Ghouls and goblins, spooks and creeps, you are back with us. You saw the showdown between Clown and Stitches, with Clown getting the W in that one, but we are going to turn our attention to our next letter of the alphabet. We are on the letter B, and we decided to rock with Basket Case. We had it out there for some B ideas, and Basket Case seemed to be the one that worked best that we wanted to discuss. So we got a casket, wicker basket to talk about. Isn't that right there, Devil?
Oh, yeah, man. Like, when it comes to body horror in the 80s, nothing even comes close to the craziness of Basket Case.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, bro, that's a weird one. That, like, in all essence of the word. So yeah, it's got that 80s cheese factor, like times 10, but it's probably one of the earliest episodes of like body horror.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those ones that's like movies that you can't even explain. You have to see it.
Yes.
To believe it.
Pretty much, man. And I mean, I love Basket Case. But I'm also just a big fan in general of like Frank's work. I just think the stuff he does is just so, unique. I think it's so outside the box, where you've got Basket Case, which has 3 films, which we're going to talk a little bit about. You've got Frankenhooker, which is one of my absolute favorite movies. And you've got Brain Damage, which is definitely out there as well.
Yeah. I mean, his movies definitely have a style to them. Whether or not that's good or bad, I guess is for you to decide. But it's definitely one of those movies that when you watch them, you know that you're watching one of his movies. I mean, he's got his signature style of filming, and oddly quirky ways that he shoots stuff. Yeah. Especially, like I said, like in this movie, you're going into, this is the early 80s. He was really big into guerrilla style filming, where he wasn't legally able to shoot a lot of these places in New York. Like he was over at the Statue of Liberty, and he figured, well, by the time the cops come, I already got my shot, so I'm good to go.
Right. No, absolutely. Because that is the definition. His movies are the definition of low budget.
Yeah.
Like Frankenhooker, I remember getting like it actually did get a budget of over $1 million, but they lost most of that just in pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
But keeping it on Basket Case, like, yeah, he's definitely a guerrilla style, definitely low budget. Like, I love the movie, I always have. It's got a happy little place in my cold black heart, but the acting is not exactly what you would call supreme either.
Oh yeah, like I don't think anybody in this movie is gonna get an Oscar or anything whatsoever. I don't think any of them probably did any theater work. It's it's about as bad acting as just pulling anybody off the street and say, "Hey, you want to be in my movie?"
Which is funny that you actually put it that way, Devil, because that's actually part of Frank's style. Is he actually does use a lot of just common people, regular people, to fill in areas, or just that guerrilla style shooting. He'll use lots of real people as basically the background of his scenes.
Yeah. So it's like I said, it's definitely not known for its great acting. It's not known for its great edits, because there's a lot. It goes, the editing and the chopping of this movie is like, I think Stevie Wonder must have edited it, because it just jumps from what happened to why the hell are we here now. And definitely like, but story wise, he writes a really good story. Script might not be the greatest, but the stories have always been really good. He's a good writer as far as like what you want to what you want to tell, what the story's about, and that kind of stuff is really good. But yeah, as far as everything else, even like if you go down like all the Basket Case, like you said, Frankenhooker, I love Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
But again, it's another movie that's very poorly acted. But but then again, it's about a fucking hooker that's dead and comes back. So like, what do you? You're not gonna take it serious. The same thing as this movie. This movie's not meant to be taken serious. It's cheeseball, and it's a crazy story, and none of it would be true. None of it would make any sense in real life. But yet, it's like a car wreck. You can't stop watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the movie a little bit. So basically, it starts off with the main character, and he is Dwayne, and he's carrying around what you'll learn to be Belial in a basket, in a wicker basket, as he checks into a hotel. Basically, he is they're twins. They're Siamese warped twins. Belial was attached to his ribs as a small boy and was surgically removed and thrown literally out with the trash. But they're able to communicate with each other through thoughts and stuff like that. But Dwayne had mentioned that it's not, since they've been separated, like, he's not as strong at talking to Belial as Belial, though, is talking to him.
Yeah. Because in the movie, like, he even says that, like, even when Belial is like in one of his moods, dude, Dwayne's trying to sleep, and he's like, "Stop talking, stop in my head." Like, he won't even let him, like, where like he was saying, like, yeah, when they were younger, their communicating was a lot more easier. They could communicate, but ever since he got separated, he definitely lost that ability to, the telepathic ability to be able to talk to him as much. I mean, he still has it, but it's not as strong as it is for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely has some memorable moments. Like at one point when Dwayne takes Belial to a veterinarian to to contemplate sewing him back onto his body, because obviously a regular doctor isn't going to perform that. I don't understand why he thought an animal doctor would even do the same. But Belial ends up killing the doctor, and actually like doing one of my favorite just all-time kills, because it's just so out there, where besides like ripping out her tongue, strangling her, he shoves her face in a drawer full of like scalpels.
Oh, yeah. And, just to let you know, Vampire, the reason why he went to the veterinary place is that woman was actually one of the doctors that cut him.
Right.
And then he
That's
found, and he found out that she wasn't even a real doctor. She's a veterinarian.
yeah.
That's why. But it's such a, like I said, as far as the kills go in this movie, it's crazy. Like that dude, like just jumping on people, tearing their faces apart, there's blood everywhere. Yeah, it's a very, like I said, and it's funny because they got this prosthetic fake little nubby thing guy, and they're like trying to fight with this thing, like, oh, it's like me having my hand and like fake going. It's crazy insane. Like I said, the acting in this movie and like the absurdness of the him killing of everybody, even whenever he's like acting up, he's like,
Yeah.
Yes, like I said, it's just like the whole entire time you're watching this movie, you're just you're laughing. I was laughing more than anything else. It's just like, oh my god, it's been a while since I've seen it, and I was like, I forgot how like over the top stupid it was, but like not in a bad way, in a good way, like in the way that
Yeah.
we loved it.
But it is too, dude, because like even the moving of Belial is so like claymation almost, like
Yeah, there are a couple times. Yeah,
animatronic, like the first time that you really see him moving around like in the apartment, and he's just in the hotel room, and he just kind of clunks onto the ground, and he's just kind of like just like
yeah, it was like really crappy, like stop time
picking,
animation.
moving around. It's, he's just got these big old, club hand things, and like, his head's all like cocked to the side with his jagged teeth and shit. It's just so weird. But like it speaks to the times, because I mean the movie was 42 years ago.
Yeah.
And times have changed, especially when it comes to how you set things up and animate things. But even that was just spoke to that budget, man, because like the scenes are so dicey when he's moving around, because it's one thing for him to kind of have this claymation awkward animatronic, but you actually kind of feel almost like you're watching like a slideshow, like it's almost like a ticking motion, where I feel like the whole picture is like shifting in order to make him move, as opposed to like some type of like seamless transition. It's so awkward, dude.
And I love, like, because like you said, he's walking around in New York with this basket in his hand the whole entire time, and everyone's like, "What's in the basket?" He's like, "I got laundry in it," and it's like, but he's got a lock on it. Like, who locks their laundry and walks around? But then again, it's like, okay, you have laundry, so today is going to be a laundry day. But then why are you walking around the next day and then the next day with the laundry? I'm like, how many times are you going to wash your laundry?
Yeah, you got the thief who steals the basket when Dwayne falls asleep in a movie theater, kicks off the lock and then gets killed by Belial.
Yeah.
There's also, in typical loner style movies, there's that almost that romantic angle, but it's kind of an interesting, like, not quite love triangle, but basically kind of a love triangle, because you've got Casey, who's just kind of like the other, one of the ladies that's like staying in the hotel with Dwayne. She's kind of like a stripper, dancer, kind of showgirl kind of thing.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the hell she really was. I know she worked at some shady club. Half the time I was kind of like, is this a drag queen or not a drag queen? Sometimes I was just like, yeah, her character in the movie was really, really odd. Like, I mean, everybody in this hotel that are staying in this it's one of those like hotels for like weirdos, because like every weirdo in New York apparently is staying at this hotel, and it's like, it's the hotel is definitely made of characters, and then you got the guy who runs the hotel, who's like the biggest character of them all. He's like some fake mafia guy.
Yeah, seriously. But then you've also got Sharon, who basically is just kind of trying to befriend Dwayne. Dwayne has, and Belial actually does as well, but Dwayne's got this kind of pent up sexual frustration, but then the funny thing is Belial seems to kind of act out the sexual nature kind of for him. So Belial goes into Casey's room and gropes her until she wakes up and screams bloody murder. Then Belial actually goes to Sharon's room, straight up does murder her, and Dwayne shows up to Belial strangely humping her, like fucking her, I guess.
Yeah.
And Dwayne kind of snaps when it comes to that because he knew that Sharon was also a good person that shouldn't have had to die.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole scene with her, like he goes to the doctor that he's trying to find, one of the doctors that performed the surgery, and he's trying to find out information about other people, and then he's the receptionist and like falls in love with him instantaneously, which is like, okay, in New York, I'm like, whatever. And then, but yeah, like our main character guy, I can understand if he was like a good buff looking dude, but he's an odd dude, man. I mean, I guess maybe in the in the late 70s, early 80s, he might have been kind of dreamy because he had that kind of like Welcome Back Kotter kind of look to him. But yeah, I mean, like he's just, to me, in standards of movies now, is somebody you would call a dork.
Yeah.
But which understandably, because like I said, he's been considered a freak his whole entire life, and then when he got the surgery, you could tell that he's a loner. Like this was a guy who never got out, and like I said, when that girl puts interest into him, it's the first girl he even says, the first girl he's ever kissed.
Right. Yeah, it's so like that weird type dynamic. It's that same type of strange casting because now a movie now, he's like playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like if this was Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors, he'd be like the wizard nerd.
Yeah.
Like but he definitely kind of had that boyish look, kind of awkward mystery that also does get a certain amount of attention. But I mean, he was fit but not muscular. He just a random dude, like just a normal guy that they built this whole like weird scenario over about. So, and then fast forward to the end of the movie, which basically takes place right after Sharon's demise, is they're fighting and feuding because Belial can also hear. It was kind of that pent up thing because Belial knows pretty much everything that Dwayne thinks and says because he's either present or can sense it. And you have the scene where Dwayne gets shit-faced and basically mocks his brother while he's basically confessing to Casey about this. Yeah. But then after, again, Sharon's demise is when Dwayne kind of fucking snaps and they're fighting and suddenly they're fighting in front of all the people in the hotel that are finally seeing this creature for the first time and seeing why this guy was so crazy looking. They end up fighting out the window and are hanging from like a flagpole or a ledge with Belial holding on to the ledge and like strangling Dwayne at the same time, just to have them, I guess, fall to their deaths to literally end the movie. As people are looking at their bodies, the credits just start rolling.
Yeah, it was weird because they're like you said, they're fighting. He's got him. He's like strangling him and stuff like that, and you're like, everybody's out there. But that's funny though, because some people were like, and other people were just like getting in cabs and walking around and not even paying attention to anything. So it's kind of like, again, it's one of those guerrilla style where, okay, you said that people act to this and the rest of the background are not probably going to pay attention to what the hell's going on. Right. And then, like you said, eventually they plat on the ground and you're like, And what?
Yeah. And
What?
as if it wasn't also funny enough, almost a nod to the movie that we would get 8 years later in Frankenhooker is that while they're hanging off this ledge before they fall and die, you've got like a bunch of prostitutes like looking up at them.
Yeah.
It's just like, really? That's a thing?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
like-
so go ahead, brother.
Yeah, like I was saying, like we were talking about earlier with the writing, I call it the Carpenter theory. Like I love John Carpenter. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. But later in his years, he can write a movie for 3/4 of the movie, and the last half of the movie is always really, really bad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this reminded me of like I said, the acting is not superb, that's not superb, but the writing, the story was always really tentative about him trying to get revenge for them trying to kill his brother that was attached to him and always feeling like a freak. So it's kind of a revenge story. And then all of a sudden that last 10-15 minutes of the movie is like, what the hell? It was just a cluster of just like, okay, you went over budget. You need to end the movie right now.
Yeah, seriously. So it's so bizarre. And then now as a closing conversation before we get to the obituaries is there's 2 more Basket Case movies, both of which have Dwayne and Belial.
Yeah.
So while I have seen them and I know the deal, usually this is the part of our conversation where we talk about our thoughts on sequels and if they should have one or if it should be standalone. This movie not only has 1 but 2.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting where you have what appears to be the straight up death of the 2 main characters. Now knowing that there's movies to follow. So I guess it's not exactly a bad thing because it creates some mystery with the fact that the movies are out now, because you can go out and watch the movie now. Like our fans can go out based off what we say and decide to go watch Basket Case and then decide if they want to continue because they can continue. But back then when the movie would have been released, whenever they would have started putting out trailers for Basket Case 2, there's a certain amount of people that probably were like, wait, what the fuck? How? They were they were in a bloody pile from a 3-story drop to end Basket Case 1.
Yeah. Especially because, like I said, back then, when those came out in the 80s and stuff like that, you didn't have the internet. So you couldn't, you just remember like, wait, didn't they die? And you went back and watched it again and be like, okay, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But yeah. So like you said, we couldn't really get the sequels. But I pose this question for you. If somebody would you be down for a remake? Because you got to realize, like, a lot of these movies, like, I'm against some remakes, but some movies like this, I think, 1, it's cheesy enough that you could do a remake, and 2, with the technology now a little bit better, they could make the creature a little bit cooler looking now versus like how it was kind of like a weird puppet kind of thing now. So what would you be interested in, maybe if somebody did or even the original director, if Frank wanted to do it, would you be down for like a possible Basket Case remake, or maybe even a continuation if we want to do a 4 instead of a remake?
Yeah, I'd be in. I would like to see that personally. I would love to see the attempt with nowadays styles and the stuff that you have accessibility to. If I'm thinking about it kind of off the top of my head, I would love to see it actually done by Charles Band and Full Moon. I feel like stylistically that would be the way to go, because it could still allow for that heavy cheese factor, because that's literally what Charles does. Whether it, Ginger Dead Man, Puppet Master, Evil Bong, or Ouija's or Killjoy, you can have that heavy cheese factor, but the accessibility to just better technology, probably better makeup and better effects. But there also is a part of me that wouldn't hate to see it redone with Eli Roth's thumbprint on it somewhere.
Yeah, make it like, I mean, like I said, because you can just take that story and talk about this, but make it. I mean, even though this is a horror movie,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, it's horrific, but at that time, it's like I said, it's funny horror. Even though I don't think it was meant to be funny horror, somewhat, but like now when you watch it, so yeah, I think if you take something like that movie and combine it with like Hostel, where it's a little bit more graphic,
Yeah.
I think Eli, or even like Green Inferno, like we talked about before. I think if Eli did something like that, or at least maybe produced it or something like that, I could see a cool reimagining of that movie and make it a little bit more darker, maybe a little more serious. I
Yeah.
mean, you can have some of the cheesiness, but I think if that movie was like done very well and really dark and kind of more that dark humor instead of like the cheesy humor, it'd be an interesting movie and kind of creepy.
Yeah, definitely. Like I would love to see like the effects nowadays where you just straight up watch Bilal just rip somebody's throat just out because he's
Yeah.
with that just like that just kind of like freak show strength and stuff like that. Like I would love to see that kind of stuff because there wasn't anything really that they could do heavily because of budget and stuff back then. You don't really see him overly dismember somebody, with the exception of a really great kill that we almost overlooked, which was him putting a buzzsaw on basically like a little go-kart that goes down
Yeah.
and cuts this dude straight in half. But he himself doesn't really do any major dismembering or anything. He's basically strangulation and like biting kind of a thing. And you see him kind of like jack up the mouth or rip out the tongue possibly of the veterinarian con doctor chick. But yeah, I would love to see something nowadays where they can do just so much more with a simplistic character and let him really kind of get like dirty and include some of that cheese factor. Like there's this scene in Basket Case where he picks his brother up by the groin.
Yeah.
But could you just picture him just simply like ripping a dude's shit off, with what they have now, as far as the ability to do like better prosthetics and stuff like that? Could you just imagine like maybe a nod to the first movie where instead of just like grabbing and lifting up his brother, he just straight up castrates a dude?
Oh yeah, like you were saying, yeah, definitely they could make it a little bit more like the makeup and the blood and stuff like that could definitely be a lot more cooler and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and like I said, you can have fun with it too. I think it would be I think it would be awesome to and then do some of those kind of throwbacks because like you were saying, throughout the movie you're seeing a little bit of this violence, but a lot of it's just you hear and then all of a sudden you see the person and they've already got their face all mangled up, and then it's because it's hard to wrestle with. I mean, they did it a little bit, but it looks so stupid when they're wrestling with this rubber doll thingy or whatever
Yeah.
like that. So it made more sense to like not show him tearing away at them as much, where it's just like a hand doing this or something like that. Where yeah, with the technology now, you can get him like hardcore doing it, and you can see the action of him doing everything, taking eyeballs out, and he eats
Yeah.
a lot of meat, so you could see him like maybe eating part of their flesh and stuff like that.
Yeah, because he's downing all those cheeseburgers like to open up at the hotel and stuff,
Yeah.
where Dwayne's just pulling just cheeseburger after cheeseburger out of this bag and just throwing them into the basket.
Yeah, that was a part of
Keeps
the
one
movie.
for himself.
That was a part of the movie I mean, that's just my sick mind thinking, but I was like, if this dude is eating a lot, how does he poop?
Right.
Out of this whole entire question, the whole movie, that was my only gripe was, wait, he's eating, how does he poop?
Exactly. It's definitely a curiosity when it would come to something like that for sure. So let's bring on the obituaries, brother. So let's give this a kill rating. So like we discussed before, it's such a fun movie. It's enjoyable, but it's not good. For me, it's a gracious 6 for me. in reality, it should probably be like a 5 or whatever, maybe even less. But I'm giving it an extra point just based off the fact that it sits in my heart in a special little place, because I just don't know what it is about that movie, but it's just so weird and over the top. But again, Frank is a very excellent script writer. He tells a great story that I just think he's probably just mostly the victim of just small budgets, where he just has to do the best with what he's got. So for me, I give it a gracious 6 based off a little bit of loyalty to it.
Oh yeah, I mean I would agree with you too. I think like yeah, if you would give it to, as far as like the acting would probably be like a 1 or a 2. The filming and the editing would probably be in the negatives, because like I said, the editing in this movie is like, who edited this?
Yeah.
But like you were saying that you got to give him credit because he was doing stuff that wasn't really considered Hollywood. He was definitely doing these obscene, crazy things. And like I said, he was one of those directors that was just like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want to do. And I'm going to make a movie however I want to make it. If people like it, people like it. If people don't like it, people don't like it. So I give him credit for that. And like I said, it's one of those movies that, like, the body horror movies that we love now wasn't really very predominant at that time. And there were a few movies that came out.
Yeah.
But like, later on, it started to get a little bit more in the mid 80s and the late 80s. You started getting a little bit more into the body horror stuff. But yeah, at that time this 82, I think it came out,
Yeah.
or 84 or somewhere around there in the mid 80s. So it's like, yeah, at that time there was barely any of that type of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you with 6, just because, like I said, in general, if this movie would have came out in the mid 90s, it'd be a lot lower, because at that time there would have been a lot enough movies that are somewhat similar. But the fact that there's not any too many movies that are like Basket Case.
Yeah. No, definitely, for sure. So that's the way that we're going to rank it. Fans and fiends and horror enthusiasts alike, coming straight from Salem and Crazy White Devil, we are giving Basket Case a 6 on the kill count when it comes to the obituaries. So that's where we're going to stand with that. So thank you so much for checking us out. We always got more skits and great things coming your way, but stay tuned for the next episode of the Vampire and Devil podcast. This is Crazy White Devil and Salem Vampire signing off.
You've got to feed me Seymour. Feed me some Vampire and Devil podcast. This is a part of the show where we honor those who have died in the month of March. We honor these 3. Stanley Kubrick, who made The Clockwork Orange. H.P. Lovecraft and his horrific novels. And Lost Boy Corey Haim, gone too soon. We also would like to mention Brandon Lee, The Crow, passed away way too soon. We honor these.